In level 3, we will be still using our factoring and simplifying skills from level 2, but we have to also multiply and divide rational expressions. So let's just review how that works. When you multiply two fractions, you multiply the top times the top and the bottom times the bottom. So one way to do this is 3 times 16 is 48, and 4 times 24 is 96. And then I have these two big numbers that I have to reduce, but I simplify 48 over 96, and that's 1/2. To avoid getting big numbers, sometimes it's helpful to cancel out and reduce diagonally or within an actual fraction before we multiply top times top and bottom times bottom. So if I have 3 over 4 times 16 over 24, I can simplify 16 over 24 first if I want. Those can both be divided by 8. 16 divided by 8 is 2. 24 divided by 8 is 3. And then I can also simplify diagonally. If I have a 3 on the top of the first fraction and a 3 on the bottom of the second fraction, those 3's can cancel out. If I divide them both by 3, I get 1 over 1. I can simplify the 4 on the bottom of the left with the 2 on the top of the right. They can both be divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now when I multiply top times top, I get 1 times 1, which is 1, and 2 times 1, which is 2, 1/2. So I can avoid those big numbers if I simplify within a fraction or diagonally first. Okay, so we're going to apply those same properties to expressions. First we have to factor. In this first fraction, I can factor out a GCF on the bottom. The top I can't do anything. So I factor out a 3x, and 3x times x gives me 3x squared, and 3x times minus 3 gives me minus 9x. So that's fully factored. Now I make sure the second fraction is in factored form. So I have x minus 3 on the top. And on the bottom, we need two binomials. There's no GCF. So 2x and x, and 3 and 1. And I want a plus here and a minus here. And then I check and see what can be canceled. I have an x minus 3 on the bottom of the left fraction and an x minus 3 on the top of the right. Those can be canceled, leaving me with a 1 on the top of the right fraction. We also have an x on the top of the first fraction and an x on the bottom of the first fraction that can cancel. So these two x's will cancel out, leaving us a 1 on the top of the first fraction. Now, there's nothing else that will cancel, so we do top times top to multiply the fractions. 1 times 1 is 1. And bottom times bottom. So I have a 3 from the first fraction, and then 2x plus 3 from the second fraction, and x minus 1. And that's my final answer. The other part of level 3 is dividing fractions. And if you remember your fraction rules, when you divide two fractions, you multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So you always keep the first fraction the same. You change it to multiplication, and you flip the second fraction to make it its reciprocal. So I get 25 over 12. You never flip the first one, always keep the first one the same, flip the second one. And now I just follow multiplication rules. So I check and see if I can simplify. And 5 and 25 can both be divided by 5, so that will give me 1 and 5. 4 and 12 can both be divided by 4, which will give me a 1 and a 3. And then I multiply top times top. 1 times 5 is 5. Bottom times bottom. 1 times 3 is 3. And that's my answer. So I'm going to apply those same properties with expressions. I take my second fraction and flip it. So I keep the first one the same, x squared minus 9 over 4x squared. Change it to multiplication, flip the second fraction. 32 over, on top, over 32x to the 7th. On the bottom, x minus 3. And now it's a multiplication problem. I need to factor it. So on the top I can factor x squared minus 9. Those are two perfect squares being subtracted. It's a difference of squares. So that will be x minus 3, x plus 3. On the bottom, I just bring down 4x squared. Can't do anything with that. Bring down the second fraction, 32x to the 7th over x minus 3. And now I check and see what can cancel out. The x minus 3's can cancel. I can simplify the 32 on the top with the 4 on the bottom, divide them both by 4. I get 1 here, and 32 divided by 4 is 8. And then I can also simplify the x squared on the bottom with the x to the 7th on the top. Subtracting the exponents, I'll get x to the 5th left on the top. So the x squared is going to cancel out on the bottom, and this is going to become x to the 5th. And I think that's everything. So on the top, I have an x plus 3, an 8, which I'm going to bring out to the front, and an x to the 5th. On the bottom, nothing was left, so that's like a 1. But I don't need to write over 1, so I can just say 8. I'm going to say x to the 5th next, and then x plus 3. And that would be a fully simplified expression.